Curious Blondes, intrigued by life.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Two Curious Blondes. And in this episode, we're going to talk about that beloved subject, sleep. And myself and Estelle, we're going to discuss the different ideas of a good sleep and perhaps problems of if you don't have a good sleep or whether you struggle with sleeping, just some ideas about how to help you. So first of all, Estelle, can I ask you really a personal question perhaps to start? Are you a good sleeper? Do you enjoy sleeping?
Oh, I love to sleep. Yeah, I love to sleep, but it's been on a lot of stress. I mean, I've been on a lot of stress, and we all know that stress is not good for sleep. It doesn't help. And currently it's getting better again, and that makes me really happy, and I can see the difference. And it's a combination, I think, from stress and menopause symptoms, and yeah, maybe also lifestyle changes or a lot of influence that I see around us that interfere with sleep. So it's getting more and more difficult, this sleep. And before I ask you the question, it's interesting because I was thinking this morning, sleep is the only thing that is really forced by our body. We cannot hold our sleep, well, to a certain point, but then not. And that's different than for example, food. I mean, we can hold ourselves to eat, but we cannot hold ourselves to sleep. So it makes clear that sleep is really primarily so important. So and you, Helen, how is your sleep?
I I love sleep like you, and I'm very lucky. I say lucky, and I didn't realize that I generally sleep well. But then I have had bad periods in the past, so I've kind of learned what to do. So I'm good at going to bed early. I don't need to stay up to the wee hours of the morning or anything. And nowadays, because I'm not in that fast career job, I don't leap out of bed to an alarm, and that makes a big difference to my sleep. And with mindfulness, I've learnt over the years of how to cope with sleeplessness and waking up in the night or not being able to get to sleep. So, all those things we're going to chat between us as well about coping strategies. But yes, I do love sleeping, and I have my comfortable bed at home, but especially I love the camper van and sleeping in the camper van. Again, traveling, I always seem to sleep well. Yes, yeah, on that.
The ticking of the rain, right? That's like in this autumn time again, getting there, like this coziness of the van or the tent or whatever you are. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I think you're going to talk a little bit about the framework of sleep. So I think it's quite important for us to understand sleep because there's been so many different research ideas and everything about sleep. But I think you're going to give us a little bit of a framework on the question of sleep.
Right. Yes, I think it's nice to set that before we dive in. So I'm also, of course, all about cycles, and this is, I think, the most pronounced, most obvious cycle, and it's related to the circadian cycle. Sorry, my my English. So yeah, we know that we are connected with the scheme of light and dark in our life, and it's also very functional, right? Because in the day we are active, and in the night we are not. We need to sleep, and that's a more or less like 8 hours sleep and 16 hours of awakeness. And of course, we can see that if we're speaking about light, it's different for the seasons, right? In the summer, you get up more early, so usually you have a smaller night, or really actually also need, usually, if you're a little bit balanced. So it's really a cycle of that, and that is correlated with a hormone called melatonin in our body, which is produced in the brain, in the pineal gland. And this totally is connected with light. So as soon as you get light into your body, especially in the eye, this hormone is suppressed, so you get awake. And cortisol, which is another hormone that is like the opposite of this hormone, goes up, so you get to be active. And on the background, the melatonin is still there and is actually it gets more level, it gets a higher level, but it's still suppressed in the release. Until after the first light, after 18 or 16 hours later, this kicks in really. So you are in sleep mode. Usually, for me, I'm wake up at 7. So that would be like in 10 o'clock or more or less, that my sleep, my body will scream for sleeping because of the melatonin. And I don't know if you feel this is true for you, Helen.
Yes, I think, like I said, when I was younger, I would go to sleep early hours of the morning, kind of thing. I'd be working late and happily go to bed at 1 or 2 o'clock. But I don't like that anymore. I remember somebody, an old Italian lady, saying to me, you know, getting as many hours of sleep before midnight can do you so much good. So for me, I like to go to bed about 10 o'clock and be asleep by 10:30, or if I'm reading, 11 o'clock at the latest. And that seems to suit my rhythm, I think. I find as I get a bit older, that sort of 3, 4 o'clock, I might occasionally have to get up to go to the toilet. But I know that I can go back to bed again and I can go back to sleep. And as I've said to you, early morning, I haven't got that alarm waking me up. So I'm not conscious like, oh, please, just half an hour more because the alarm's going to go off in a minute. As soon as you take away those kind of pressures, I find that I have a very different sleep, I think.
Right. Yeah. And you know that Italian lady, to affirm that Italian lady is very wise, because in the cycle of this hormone, like the melatonin, the peak is around 2 o'clock. So everything that you have before has also a different kind of sleep. So we have cycles of like 90 minutes, maybe a little bit more than that, each time again. So inside of the sleep, we still have this cycle again. But in the first part of that, before 2, our deep sleep is more pronounced, and then the REM sleep, so where we have the dream state, it's less. And in the second part of the night, after the 2, it's more about that REM sleep. And that makes that in the first part, it's really about restoration of your body, of your total body, everything, all the functions, cleansing, really cleaning your brain. So a lot of fluids go through your brain to clean with all the chemicals that we build also in our brain, not only in our liver or any other part of our body. And in the second part, it's more about this psychological and emotional part getting some kind of restoration and adaptation of everything that we did that day. So it's really interesting. These old women know these truths that are there
without perhaps even knowing the scientific background. Yes, yeah. And of course, I do believe that you can have too much sleep. Sometimes if you stay in bed and then you go back to sleep, it can always make you in the morning feel a little bit sort of fuzzy headed. You know, you might have been in bed asleep for 10 hours or something, and you might think, oh, I needed that. But often your day isn't as good after a long sleep, because your brain isn't quite acting in the same way, I think, and your whole body feels like it's a little bit lazy, perhaps, from too much sleep as well.
Right, yeah, right. In general, for adults, it's like 8. Well, for women, it's 8 or a little bit more, maybe till 9, and that's more than enough. For younger generation, of course, of the younger generation, it's a different thing. They have more, babies have a lot of sleep, need a lot of sleep. And when you get older, even closer to 90, 80, it gets also a little bit less, but still in women, we need more. And also because in our sleep, we tend to create growth hormone, which is also very helpful for many things in our body. And yeah, women need that in the sleep, while men have that growth hormone already in their body. They don't need to sleep for that. So that's why women sleep, a little bit longer. And yes, there's like 9 o'clock is more than enough. And if you have less sleep during the night, and you want to take that the deprivation, sleep a little bit more to later in the day, like having a nap, it's okay, you can do that, but only like 24 hours it works. So it doesn't work like having a whole week of not sleeping well, and then in the weekend I sleep more. It doesn't work. It really doesn't work. Actually, it's also about that routine, right? And you take out the routine if you do that.
No. My husband Adam, he loves a little siesta after lunch, just 20 minutes. Occasionally I would do it. When I was younger, I lived in Spain and it was so hot. I understood why they did it and why they needed that sort of relief from the heat. But nowadays I prefer to use my time perhaps just for relaxing and reading rather than actually sleeping, I think. And of course, that's quite an important thing, that I think relaxation and sleep are very connected. And sometimes we get quite obsessed about the idea of sleep when we also need as well relaxation. So to have a busy day and then expect your whole body and mind to just cut into a good night's sleep doesn't always work. And you have to perhaps slow down a little bit, give your body and mind an opportunity to relax before going to sleep. Yes, it's
definitely. Definitely.
yeah.
Like again, the cycles and the seasons. We need that autumn to go into winter and sleep. And yes, I think it's almost undoable to fall asleep. Maybe it works one time or but like being so tired, and then of course it can work for a few nights maybe, but then on a certain point doesn't help. And because also we need to wind down that mental part of us, and that we have still, even though we both live in a different rhythm than average, the red race there in most that are still alive in most people's life. We need to wind down that fast pace in our mind and in our body, and relaxation. It takes many times. So what do you do to do that? So what is your what helps you get that sleeping, I mean, getting
Yes,
to sleep?
getting to sleep. I think one of the things that's quite important is your mindset. So I actually like going to bed. You know, I'm like, right, my day is done. I kind of have a little clear up or whatever I need to do, and I will go to bed and actually enjoy going to bed. So I think that's quite important if you have sleep problems, is not to get yourself worked up or anxious about going to bed because you think I might not sleep and everything. So I think that's quite a good mindset. But the other thing I always do is a little sort of mindfulness meditation before going to sleep. We've talked about this as well. So it could be some a body scan, it could be some breathing, it could be taking yourself off to some lovely place. And I think using those kind of things and practicing those kind of things will become a good habit, and then the routine of that kind of tricks your mind into believing that it's time for sleep. That's what you need to do, I think, is create these good habits to go to sleep. Yeah.
Right. So that's like a few hours before sleep, you're starting to go in that, you mean?
Yes, it's usually about an hour and a half. Yes, depending. When I was younger, I used to have a coffee, and of course, a terrible thing to have. Yes, yeah, to have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. I think you were telling me about the caffeine in the body. Yeah.
Yeah, the caffeine in the body, it's yeah, it becomes very difficult to digest that. Not, I mean, we digest it as a for having the energy, of course, so we can feel it, right? You have that lift, but to really digest it and also have it on a brain level put down, it takes it's a half life, so it's only halfway of digesting that cup. 5 hours, it takes 5 hours. So, and even if you take decaf, it's still 4 hours. We think that decaf takes out the caffeine. Besides that, there's always a little bit of caffeine. It's like the chemicals itself, it will take a lot of time to get that out of our system. And of course, there are differences between people. I mean, there are people who can really still drink quite late coffee and a lot of coffee, and it has to do also with some routine, of course, in that. But also some people, there's more and more research that people have different adapters, so they are more easy in digesting that, to clean the body from that specific chemical besides the caffeine. But yes, so imagine if you take for myself, I stopped drinking coffee after 12 in the morning, and not more than 2 cups. And some days even not that, it's one. And I try to check in with myself before I take, because it's very tempting. I like coffee. I like the smell of coffee, and I think many people have that. But if I'm really in a good centered way, I really ask myself, is this really what I need, or do I need something else, like just have a sit or a relaxation and take a tea, just something to also relax. And yes, I also love to drink teas, herbal teas, but especially things like for digesting. I like to drink fennel tea. It's really nice, and it slows down the digesting, which helps too to relax for me, because it's all about relaxation, of course, also. Or chamomile, of course. Chamomile tea is very helpful. And just to make a little shift also to our conversation, there's a time that I took some valerian, some drops, that it's just about relaxation. It's not really meant for sleep specifically, but it relaxes. And of course, you can take melatonin yourself, but I'm not a big fan of that. And there's also the drops of I'm always gonna need to check a CBD that can be helpful for people. And I'm seeing a really good results around me for women that take that instead of medication. Because be aware of medication, and I'm not saying that it's a no-go, but be mindful that it will not give you that deep sleep, because we have these different, like I told before, these different levels of sleep, and a medicine like that will give you not that really profound sleep that we need. So you think you have a lot of hours, but not the quality itself.
I quite like a glass of water. I have a glass of water. I take a glass of water to bed with me as well. Sometimes I might wake up in the night a bit thirsty. So yes, just a plain glass of water can be beneficial, I think.
And not too much, right? Not too much, not to give. And if you feel that you drink so much, it's also something to be aware. So what did I drink during the day that I need to drink so much now, that I feel so thirsty, or I feel that I need to drink to level something that I didn't do during the day, and start to try that differently. So what do you do?
Yes.
That's my bridge to you. What do you do during the day that makes a difference for you, beside the things that we
Yes, I think for me, I know nowadays in the summer especially, we end up eating in the evenings because the days are busy, doing bits and pieces. So we tend to eat later in the summer, and then that leaves me thirstier going to sleep, I think. And again, we've spoken about this, and we'll talk about it a bit more about I'm still a meat eater at times, and fish and chicken and vegetables, obviously. But depending what you eat, what is actually going to sit in your stomach all night and not digest very well can obviously have a big effect on your sleep as well. And the other thing that I think is quite important is sometimes I forget to have drunk very much during the day, and then I have this mad rush in the evening because I'm thirsty and end up drinking too much in the evenings. Yeah. So it's about making sure that you've got that bottle of water on the go all day, I think. Habits, healthy habits again. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Mm.
That water during the day, or herbal tea, of course, or good vegetable juices, and also your intake of sugars is usually something, because that interferes with cortisol, and cortisol has an effect on melatonin. So it's really interesting because there are more and more research about people who eat whole food, like whole grains and
Yes.
vegetables and fruits, instead of the white pasta, etc. Even during the day. So it's not, you don't need to eat it in the evening. Even during the day, it will have an effect on your sleep. It will interfere, because the cortisol, and like this, it's like an orchestra with all these hormones, and it's a very complex thing. And I'm not a specialist in all the details, but these are the things that I also found myself, that it's really different if I've been eating a lot of sugar, for example, or like that coffee. But also the other way, like things like eggs and banana and milk, and has a lot of tryptophan, which also gives you a boost in melatonin. So there are also specific foods that help to make this hormone, if you're in lack of that, because usually that's especially with people who are not able to sleep the nights because they have a night shift, or because they have children or grandchildren that wake them up in the night. You can have these little bites of food that help.
Okay. And so what about this idea of waking up in the night? So what do you do, Estelle, if you find that that kind of feeling of wide awake, your mind is racing? What do you do? What do you recommend?
Well, there are many tools, and of course we already talked a little bit about that before this, but one thing that really simple is really focusing on your breath. That's a really short one, and making that breath like the center of your universe. And that is like literally, and usually I help that with my hands, putting on my belly to get the breath deep and down and slow, and just focusing on the air going there, or your stomach going up and down, of your hands on your stomach going up and down. And maybe I can lead you and the audience to a small exercise which deepens that effect, because what I usually have is that because I'm so much in my head, then I'm not really centered, and I'm also not grounded. I'm like up there. So I do a visualization with this breath, and maybe I can lead you to do it.
Yes, I think that would be a nice little
Just
exercise.
a short one to have a
Yes.
teaser.